Hello and welcome to Playtonic. In our series of Western political thinkers, today we are going to cover J.S. Mill. When we were talking of the philosophy of liberalism, John Locke is called the father of liberalism because he has given the theory of natural rights. And John Locke has given an elaborate theory on right to property, but we cannot say that liberalism is just limited to right to property. There are other aspects of liberalism like freedom of speech and expression, freedom to form associations. So here comes John Stuart Mill, J.S. Mill. He is the first person to give the theory of liberty, and he explains why the freedom of speech and expression is important, why every person should be allowed to have an opinion and express in his opinion. Next, he is also known as the champion of democracy, and in the same league, while he is talking of liberalism and freedom of speech and expression, he also advocates democracy. But then later he will be called as a reluctant democrat, and for that we'll be looking at the reasons. Next, he is known as the champion of women's right. So when we read the feminism ideology, we see that they credit only Plato and Mill among us, the Western political thinkers, to have talked about women issues and to be feminists. So Mill has talked a lot about women's rights, and he's a champion of women's rights. Next, Barker calls Mill a prophet of empty liberty and abstract individualism. Now, why empty liberty? See, it is because of his time. J.S. Mill, he stands at the crossroads of negative and positive liberty. That is the classical idea of liberty and the modern liberalism. So it is because of these times that there was certain inconsistency, and it is for this reason that he is called the prophet of empty liberty. But then he is also called as inconsistent thinker that we have talked about. And next, he is known as reluctant democrat because he says that in barbarians, benevolent despotism is good for barbarians. So in places where countries like India, colonies that were present at that time, he suggests that democracy is not good for them, and benevolent despotism is what he suggested for these colonies. And this is why we call him a reluctant democrat, because he is not ready to expand democracy to every place. Right. Next, he is called as a utilitarian who destroyed utilitarianism. Now, utilitarianism was a dominant philosophy of those times in 18th and 19th century Britain, and it was called as the philosophy of common man. It was based on the simple concept of pleasure and pain, but then it was so focused on satisfaction of the appetite and utility that Carroll calls it pig's philosophy, right? And it gained a lot of criticism, utilitarian. Now, since utilitarianism was the idea of Bentham, and Mill considered Bentham as his master, so Mill thought that now is the time when I should defend utilitarianism. But in this process, he ended up destroying some fundamentals of utilitarianism. So it is said that Mill is the Peter who denied his master. So Mill says that the pleasure should not only be quantitative as it was believed in utilitarianism. Mill says that it also has qualitative aspects. There is difference in pleasure and happiness. If pleasure is about satisfaction of body, happiness is about satisfaction of soul. So he suggests that not only pleasures differ in quality, people also differ in quality. Some are men of reason, some are men of appetite. And in this regard, he says that it is better to be a Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. Right. So next we move towards another idea of Mill, where he says that where he gives primacy of liberty over utility. And though he says that people should be allowed to speak and express their feelings, he has given the concept of reasonable restrictions and the harm principle. So the sole purpose for which mankind is warranted to interfere in the life of other person is to prevent harm to others. He says that is uh, even self harm is no basis to interfere. So over his body and over his mind, man is sovereign. Man has complete independence over himself. He knows what is to be done, and you cannot take away the liberty of someone on the excuse of self harm. So all restraints are qua restraints, and all silencing is an assumption of infallibility, that only there is only one truth. But it is not like that. Mill says that if all but one has a difference of opinion, majority should listen to that person. Just like tyranny of one can't be accepted on all, similarly tyranny of all cannot be accepted on one. And this is how he has established the right to liberty. Article 19 in our constitution is based on his ideas. And next he talks about women, and he says that all forms of slavery is abolished except subjugation of women, and it is so universal that it appears to be natural. And for his views he is called as a feminist. So with this we have covered the major ideas of John Stuart Mill, and stay tuned to Playtonic. We will be covering other political thinkers too. Thank you.